The month of March. Sometimes it can be dreary, sometimes it can drag. Am I right? Well, not with your nose in a good book. And this go around for Katie's book club, the pick was Wedding of the Season by Lauren Edmondson. The story, got the book right here, is set in Newport, Rhode Island. Two dysfunctional families are to be joined together in an upcoming wedding. Our protagonist, the sister of the bride, returns to a place she would really rather forget. Now, she ends up staying the summer and consequently confronts who she is in her hometown, despite maybe some questionable history. And I am so honored to be joined by author Lauren Edmondson via Zoom today. How you doing, Lauren?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So excited to chat with you.
Oh, I'm so excited too. And you live in Northern Virginia, right?
I do, yes. I live in Northern Virginia with my husband and two children.
Ah, busy, but you still have time to write books. I love it.
Yes. I wrote this one during my son's nap times.
Oh, perfect. I love it. So this was a book, of course, you're in Northern Virginia, but you were inspired to write about Newport, Rhode Island. You were visiting, right? And you saw the mansions. Tell us a little bit about how the inspiration came about.
Yeah, I was visiting Newport many years ago. My girlfriend and I went to visit the Breakers in Newport, built by the Vanderbilt family. And while we were going on the tour there, we learned that at the time, quite recently, the last descendants of the Vanderbilt family had been living in this house that had become a museum on the third floor. They had either been evicted or they had voluntarily left the house that had been in their family for over 100 years. And even though I was working on my first novel at the time, I sort of tucked the idea away. And once my first novel was done, this idea came to mind and I just ran with it.
I love it. And so we spend this book inside the head of the protagonist, Cass. She's hilarious. She's relatable. She tells us, what she's thinking all the time. She refers to her mom by her first name. So she calls her mom Hope. She doesn't call her mom. And tell us just a little bit about how the inspiration for this character came about.
Yeah, I love Cass so much. I'm so glad you liked her too. From the very beginning, she was always going to be my rebel middle child. Middle children are really unique as sometimes they feel or they find themselves squished between older and younger siblings, as Cass does. But she's also kind of squished more broadly between two worlds. She is the descendant of this fictionalized, famous Vanderbilt-esque family, but she also doesn't have any of the trappings of money or fame or credibility, social status anymore, because this family has really fallen from grace and fallen from their turn of the century Gilded Age heights. So she finds herself really squished between the past and the present, as well as squished within her own family as oftentimes the overlooked middle child.
And you have her, she says, keep it moving all the time, kind of in her head. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, she's a photographer, and one of the first lessons that she was taught as a documentary photographer was keep it moving. Like, if you can't find the shot, if the shot isn't coming to you, just pick up your tripod and move. She takes that mantra back with her to Newport as she's revisiting her hometown for the first time in nearly a decade. And she wants to just get in and get out. She really tries to keep it moving. And of course, she can't. So.
Exactly. And I mentioned that earlier, that so much of this story is her kind of wrestling with her relationship with her hometown. And I always like to pick a quote that kind of resonated with me a lot. And page 288, she says, "The truth, I wasn't scared of this place. I was scared of who I was here, or maybe who I'd been." And I think that that's just such an interesting thing to kind of think about as somebody, I don't live at home anymore. My family's in Maine. So it is this interesting when you live far from your hometown and then you go back, it is this kind of big question you wrestle with of, okay, who was I, but who am I now? Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired that?
I love that you picked that quote because I think it just captures really the core theme of the book is coming home. And I was just so curious about, as adults, what happens when we go back and we're with our families? We often kind of revert into this kind of childhood teenage version of ourselves, where, especially for a person like Cass, who isn't proud of who she was as a teenager, it's a really uncomfortable position for her to be in. Also, she has to move back in with her parents and her younger brother. And that experience of kind of trying to fit yourself physically and mentally and emotionally into this place that used to be your home, I just find so fascinating from a writing perspective of how these characters can navigate that.
Totally agree. And what message do you want readers to kind of walk away with after reading the book?
Yeah, I really hope that, well, first of all, I hope that they have fun reading this. I certainly had so much fun writing it. I hope the message is one of optimism, that families, of course, change and they grow and they regroup and they fall apart and then come back together. I want readers to walk away feeling optimistic that even despite of changes, families can still kind of fall back in love with each other in their new form.
That is magical and so true. Now, tell us what's next for you.
I'm working on book number 3 now. I'm really interested in places where old money clashes with new. And so I'm really looking forward to setting book number 3 in the Hamptons. So look for that one soon.
Awesome. Author Lauren Edmondson, thank you so much for joining us today. I love the book. It'll have me thinking seriously for a long time. So thank you so much. And we'll look forward to the next book.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so lovely to chat with you.
You too. All right, well, be sure to pick up our next book for Katie's Book Club. Our April selection takes us to the island of Nantucket in the year 1846. After a massive fire breaks out in town, 3 different women are forced to rebuild from the ashes. Visit BethanyBeachBooks.com or check out the store to get your copy today. DelmarvaLife will be right back.